But yeah, like so.
What a fucking name too, right?
The Beamer.
Yeah.
But we start talking about, they're like asking me like, oh, what makes good maps, and what I'm telling, oh, 3 lanes is awesome, like symmetry and then gun balance, great, like try and make it as many weapons as possible. Kind of give him the kind of lowdown, and it was almost like an interview for a future kind of 2 years later. In that stage, so like when I started, I was like, oh, we already talked to you about certain. Oh yeah, like I remember talking to you guys. So yeah, I was talking to like a couple of guys there, and they brought me on, and I spent the 4 months there, and the understanding when I first joined was like, hey, like this is your kind of like not tryout, but like if you like doing this and we feel like you're good at it, then we'll keep you. And I'm like, I didn't really look at it with too much of like a serious tone at the time, but yeah, it worked out. Like it was fun. I felt like it was an opportunity for me to kind of go into the back scenes and try and help Call of Duty from an esports and just Call of Duty game standpoint to grow from the inside. And because the playing stuff was just going to be complicated with visa situations, because I was living in the States and I'm Canadian. So for people who don't know, you need visas to live in the States and work, to be taxed in the States and all that crap. So, and then it's expensive, it takes time. And if I have to do that change every time I change a team, and especially the community at the time was very kind of loosely people kicking each other, friendship, whatever, bull crap. I didn't see myself playing with players that I felt were going to want to keep me. Yeah. Like Merc, Big T, JCap, Scumpy.
All day long.
Like those were the 4 guys that like I could compete with. Like you give me any, like at least 2 guys of those 4 guys on the team, I don't feel like my job's in risk. Yeah. But when it was just one of them or just other players, like, like they just didn't understand. They didn't treat it as a job, as a business, right? Yeah. And that's hurtful for me because I'm like, what, 3 or 4 years older than everyone else at the time. Yeah. So like, this is my life. Like if this doesn't work for me, I got no food on the table. Yeah. So yeah, like the change was great. I ended up being at Sledge for 5.5 years. I learned a lot.
I remember when you first got there, I was talking to Dr. D, because at the time Dr. Disrespect was what, map designing or some shit. Like, I remember being there, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was Miggs.
Yeah, Brian Miggs.
Yeah, Brian Miggs or who, but he's like, yeah, guy's mad because he's no longer the best Call of Duty player in the fucking company, right? You have Rambo in here like beating that ass, and I'm like, I remember bringing it up. He's like, nah, it's not true. But yeah, so what did you do exactly? Just sort of from a balanced pro player point of view, or did you see and oversee anything that had to do with just like pubs in general? Was it more, because it had to have been fun, right? Like I would love to work for, Call of Duty. I love the Call of Duty's my life. Call of Duty's life.
I'll give you the goods and the bad. So just to start, like my official title was competitive systems designer. So to start with, just so people understand what goes into making video games, our studio at Ship had probably 350 employees. There's about, let's say a quarter of that, or maybe a little less, are engineers, people that kind of write code and that you expect like what it is to make video games. It's a lot more complicated what people think. We have artists that kind of draw and get stuff in game, and then through programs create 3D models for weapons, for maps, environment, like everything you can think of that you see. There's producers, the people that kind of help the flow and make sure everything goes through right, and then there's designers. For the most part, those are the 4 kind of quadrants.
Jesus.
So the designers are the people that kind of tell, like, well, they'll work with the engineers and they'll work with the artists as to what they want and what they're looking for, and then there's the creative vision, the creative director, like heads, like there's literally like it's a not a mess, but there's just so much going on at once that it makes making these games pretty difficult, right? It's not like just like for lack of I was one of the guys on the other side that was kind of saying, oh, it can't be that hard to do that. Yeah. Like Black Ops, or was it Modern Warfare 2 didn't have land? How hard is it to take land? Just copy paste what they did on Black Ops 1, put on this game. But like there's so many code things, and without saying too much, I don't want to go into too much detail because I don't know how much I can say. But just from a point of view, like the outside perspective is very different than what you would think. Yeah. So the amount of differences and aspects on how studios do things, because we're all making Call of Duty game, but we're all different studios. It's just like things at Optic Gaming go differently at teams at Team Envious. Like we're still holding professional teams, but the way you handle things are different than what another team handles, even though you're doing the same thing, or you're trying to create a product similar in the end. But yeah, like the cool parts of my job was like my role in general was mostly balancing. But from a technical standpoint, I would put the weapons in the game. So I would hook up weapons. So I would get assets from the artists and assets from the sound team and assets from basically everything that goes into weapons, and I would put them in the game. So like I would hook up in certain code areas. It wasn't like me typing code; it was more me kind of changing the code to work for like, oh, the PP90 needs to work this way, and then I would be the one who set like the fire rate and then the damages and try and make the balance and tuning of all the weapons happen. For World War II mostly is kind of the games that I did that from start to finish. Then I would also have kind of my hand pickings on like trying to help with map design. Like we play the game every day that we're making. Granted, it changes vastly from day to day, depending on the time we're in. But like when we make a new map, we're iterating, we're changing things, and there's feedback. And then my feedback would have kind of a place in for trying to make a map competitively viable, whether it worked or not. Sometimes like it would basically trying to make it to where like spawns and everything would work properly. Trying to understand values on how spawns work. Spawns work basically. There's weights. Like there's basically line of sight and weights on how it works. I would try and help tune that.